All right, here we are. We're back, and I have to say, I think this is. First of all, before I even get into that, I got to address. You look like a different person. You look like a truck driver with that hat on. Like if you took the glasses off, you'd look like a guy with like a Confederate flag tattoo and like a fucking truck.
No. I'm doing the chubby hipster thing. You know, like I'm like the chubby hipster guy who looks like a truck driver. You know.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, you know how hipsters culturally appropriate poor people. That's what I'm doing.
Do
you know,
they?
Like they drink, they drink PBRs and they wear like janitor outfits and shit. That's what I'm trying to be. That's what I'm that's what I'm trying to pretend to be. No, this is a hat. This is my cousin's. I'm doing
a hat. You're saying that's a hat. Okay.
I had more to say. I wasn't going to stop there. I want to go. This is a hat, and that's a wall. This is not fucking Blues Clues. Is that what they do on Blues Clues? I don't know. But anyway,
I don't know. I'm 39.
I was okay. So you know how like this is a hat my cousin for his comic book, a really great graphic novel. I'm plugging something.
Right.
And I didn't even ask beforehand. I'm just plugging it. It's my cousin. You should check it out. But the reason I wore it is because I love this hat, and I'm never a hat guy. I was trying to become a hat guy this year. You know, just this, and I lost the hat. And you know how like they give you bags at the grocery store now? Like you can't.
Yeah.
Like they've always given you bags at the grocery store. What am I trying to say? You know how you can't reusable. My kitchen's just a mountain because we never reuse them. We just keep on buying bags. So it's just a mountain of reusable bags that have not been reused. And I found it under it when I was cleaning today.
Oh, fun.
So,
we'll just be sure to cut all this. But
also, is that armpit sweat? Jesus Christ.
You're gonna get annihilated in the comments for that one.
I haven't done anything today. I haven't even left my house.
Yeah, well, maybe it's the hat. I don't know, but the hat's a lot because it's a thing that people are gonna read. That's people don't think about stuff like this, where they get a tattoo like on their forearm that's words, so people are gonna want to read it.
I mean, I'm not saying like fuck Bosnians. It just says Night of the Mullets. It's not like controversial.
Saying people are gonna go, "What's your hat?" You have to deal with that all the time. What's Flight of the Mullets? Let's do a practice run. You're out. You're at buying coffee, and you order your coffee.
All right. Could I get
Flight of the Mullets? What's that? What do you got there?
It's Night of the Mullets. It's my cousin's comic book. You should buy it.
Wow, your cousin makes comic books, huh? Where does he live?
He lives in California, in LA.
Oh, wow, LA, Hollywood. Now, are you in the business too, or so what goes on? You work for them?
No, I'm not in the business.
Oh, all right. That's just interesting. So what's the comic book?
The comic book is about mullets. It's
I wrote zombies. A comic book for a while. That's what you're going to have to deal with. That's going to be your life.
Said. How do you think my improv went? I was trying to yes and.
It was pretty good. I was worrying that there was no jokes coming, so I had to.
Well, no, you don't have to be funny in improv. We were just being real.
Right.
We were just being real. That's what they say.
Improv is one letter away from improve.
Oh, that's true. Improve, yeah.
But I deal with it just a Red Sox hat. You got to deal with. Oh, look at this guy, and you're like, I know, yeah, all right. Great.
I mean,
but
no one's talking to each other in the pandemic. I don't know. I mean, I just like. I don't know. I feel like a different person wearing a hat. I feel. It's like it's a vacation from George. You know what I mean? I feel like a different person.
It looks cool. Yeah, it works.
Yeah. So we're doing Coen Brothers today.
That's what I was going to say. This is like our most requested topic.
And we're finally doing it. So shut the fuck up requesting this. Can't do it anymore. We're doing it.
And I like transparency in my podcast. This is something Mark and I argue about. I don't know which side you're on. I like transparency. So the reason we're doing this is because I got to leave on a trip. So we haven't rewatched these movies recently, but we know them so well.
Right. I also have to leave on a trip, by the way. It's not just you.
I mean, how long's your trip for?
It's a trip you got me. I'm doing the Key West Comedy Club.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's gonna be fun. But I'm going for like 8 days.
Oh, okay. I'm busy too, though.
All right. Yeah, you're busy. We're all busy. I'm going for 8 days. I'm back for 2, then gone for 5.
So we're doing this in the can, which we have never done.
This is right in my can.
We always do it 4 weeks after it's supposed to come out. And this time we're doing it beforehand. We're very professional of us.
Yeah, excited. It's exciting. And so we're going to talk.
We're going to talk about the top 4 Coen Brothers movies. Lady Birds, or Lady Killers. Intolerable Cruelty. What are the other 2 masterpieces we're doing?
Hudsucker Proxy.
And what's their worst movie?
I would say Lady Killers, right? Or Hudsucker Proxy's not good. People push back on that but it's not.
No, it's weird.
It's not great. It's not good.
Like, I feel like their early movies were kind of weirder than they were funny.
I don't know. I mean, Blood Simple is amazing. Raising Arizona is hilarious. And
yeah,
great.
Raising Arizona is like one of the greatest comedies ever. Never mind, I take that back. But like,
and Miller's Crossing is unbelievable.
Yeah, I take it all back. But even Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink, I like those, but not. I feel like the real masterpieces start at. I mean, I guess Raising Arizona, but like after that, everything after Fargo. We're going to talk about my 4 favorite Coen Brothers movies.
Wait, so we're doing Llewyn Davis also? I thought we were doing.
No, we don't have to do it. We're just going to do 3, right?
Okay, yeah, but you're saying 4. That's where my confusion comes in.
Well, I mean, no, we'll just do 3. But I mean, we can do 4 if we have time. But we'll do 3. We'll do Big Lebowski, No Country, and Fargo.
Yes, we're not going to have time because we're going to do a half hour on each of these. I just know us. I know how we operate nowadays.
But I really want to talk about Inside Llewyn Davis. I feel like it doesn't get enough love.
Well, I guess we're talking about it now, but we'll do a deeper dive sometime. But
the second Patreon.
You keep talking about Patreon. We haven't even started a Patreon. I don't have enough time to do this. We'll figure it out. Let's figure that out off air. But yes, Inside Llewyn Davis is a masterpiece, and I get frustrated because I was talking to Ron Bennington, who's a movie guy, and I think has actually watched this show before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is nerve-wracking. But he didn't like it because he found the character so unlikable that he just hated the movie.
That's hilarious to me because for me, every movie I love is the character has to have a little sleaze on them. That just like have to be, if they're unlikable in a certain way, I love them. And the moment where I love that main character is literally the moment where he's trying to get his best friend to loan him money to pay for his friend's girlfriend's or wife's abortion.
Right.
Because he's cheating on her. And that moment of him trying to get the money from him made me like, oh, I love this character. He's such a sleazebag.
It's amazing. It also, and I think I heard Mike Lawrence say this first, but it's like basically the best movie about comedy. I mean, you can replace the music with comics and it nails it so well. I mean, now we're just fully talking about it, but that scene where he goes to hide his box of records and it hits the other guy's box of records. I mean, it's amazing.
There's so many incredible, like just images in it. And it's the first movie to really show like every New York TV show, every apartment's like a mansion and they're just like jumping on a trampoline in like their bedroom. This is the first thing that shows like there's a part where he's walking through a hallway in an apartment to a door and it's so narrow. It's like the first time you feel the narrowness of New York apartments, you know?
Yeah, it's so great. And also one of the most poignant, beautiful lines ever when he does the thing for F. Murray Abrams, which we can all relate to. And then he goes, here's my advice. Go back to your partner, who he doesn't realize is dead. And he says, that's good advice. I mean, it's just so beautiful and painful.
Well, I mean, also the fact that he sings his soul out into this beautiful song. And then F. Murray Abrams' first response is, I don't see any money in it. That's just the end of it. It's such a beautiful movie. I mean, it is one of my all-time favorite movies, but I also I understand why people don't like it just because it is so for us. I mean, it's literally about the struggle of being a road act.
Right.
And mixed with Bob Dylan. Like, it's just a movie. It's a movie made by my favorite director. So it's literally a movie like I dreamt of, like, just what if Coen Brothers made a movie about Dylan and the struggle of being a performer? It's just like made for us.
Right. In the village that we still currently perform in.
And
it's also so great that last moment where he's walking and just gives Dylan a glance and like it's so understated if you don't exactly know what he's thinking exactly. But of course we know as the audience that like this guy is about to change the entire society forever, change the entire course of the country and entertainment. And he's pretty similar to what he just did. Which is another great window into like stand-up comedy, where you're just like, but aren't I doing the same thing as that guy? I mean, isn't that basically better than me?
For every famous guy, there's like 30 other really great comics who just are like have a similar thing they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just didn't strike quite the chord. So it's just a beautiful movie.
Though I will say, they don't really go into this, but the interesting thing, like, so it's based on Dave Van Ronk. Have you ever heard Dave Van Ronk, the folk musician?
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that you ask, and it just hurts my feelings. I'm like, I know him, and I know that. Yes, it's just, of course, I know who he is.
Have you heard of Joni Mitchell? Like, you know who?
Yes, I know who he is. I know all about him and the film.
Well, I mean, David Frog was like this folk enthusiast where I don't think he really wrote his own songs. And I feel like a lot of folk singers were like purists where they just kind of covered other songs. So Dylan was also kind of bringing in a new wave of songwriting too. His whole way of doing things is also getting kind of blown out of the water, you know?
Right. The best line in No Country for Old Men, No Direction Home. Have you heard of No Direction Home? Martin Scorsese, he made a documentary.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it. Yeah. Who's Scorsese?
He's a NYU student.
Nice.
But that was good improv.
Crush it. We should do a thing like those two guys who do improv together.
We'll put it on the Patreon. But the best moment in the whole movie to me is when Joan Baez says, "I don't know what he thought. All I know is what he gave us," and he just gave them all these great songs for them to forever cover and not write their own good songs. So repeated.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, we're talking about probably one of his Coen Brothers like more niche movies first, so maybe a lot of people, because I honestly I feel like a lot of people, some people love this movie and a lot of people don't get it because they think there's no plot. Even though I think like what I also think is amazing about this movie is that it's structured around a couple days, and so much shit happens in that day, and it's both the minutia of each day, but then it's also very epic. It's like a very epic journey, you know, and it combines those two things a lot, where it can be like little moments that also feel almost Greek in their mythology. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting because the Coen brothers make a lot of movies that feel pretty niche. And I feel like a lot of people don't get their movies at all. It feels like most of their movies are sort of culty. I know they're big movies, but they're not, blockbusters. And if you got issues with plot and the Coen brothers, I mean, the Big Lebowski is like maybe their most popular movie. And the plot is fucking insane. It's insanity. It's hard to really follow. And they said, they were on record saying the plot was secondary. They thought that was less important. It's sort of like a whole movie of MacGuffins, really.
Oh yeah, Big Lebowski is just like, I mean, the plot is also made up. Like none of the things they think happen.
Right,
so,
right.
Like the plot is all just in people's heads. Like she really did just run away. It's a bunch of people kind of fucking up at schemes, basically.
Yeah, and it's like you have both the carpet and the money are pretty inconsequential ultimately.
Yeah, well, to me, okay, so I think, are we moving to Big Lebowski?
It feels like it.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Inside Llewyn Davis is amazing. Maybe we'll talk about it a different time. More on the Patreon.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. You call me a moron? We'll do more about it, but it's brilliant and we love it. But we got to save time to talk about these other three movies.
Yeah. By the way, just want to, if you haven't seen Inside Llewyn Davis, check it out. It really is incredible.
But I do think the Coen brothers have three masterpieces, and they are Inside Llewyn Davis, No Country, and Fargo. And Big Lebowski, I wouldn't call a masterpiece, but I think it's amazing.
I think Big Lebowski is the funniest movie of all time.
I think Walter Sobchak is the funniest character of all time. We can meet there.
I mean, I think, I don't know. I truly think like there's so many great comedies, but because all the humor is so character based, it never gets old. Like to me, every time I watch it, it's just as funny because it's not like just, jokey jokes that just like you can see them coming. As great as Naked Gun is, at a certain point, you just know the jokes. For me, just watching this character, it just gets funnier and funnier. It doesn't age. And to me, that's what I think is so funny. I watched it in theaters with my dad. And this is the moment I realized that people don't respect comedy. My dad has like a very loud cough laugh. He'll just start laughing. He'll turn into a giant cough like he's dying. It's really embarrassing. And I'm in the theater with him and he's dying laughing the whole time. Just like, like the whole fucking movie. It looks like he's fucking dying. He's like, like the whole movie. It's like very embarrassing, right? But I've never.
It must have been fun during COVID.
When he watched comedies during COVID, everyone ran as far as they could go. But so I've never seen my dad have that much joy in his life. You know what I mean? Ever. Right. And then we're leaving the theater and he just goes, that was good. It was like some kind of dumb Cheech and Chong movie. I'm like, what? You just had more joy in that than you've had in the 20 years I've known you, or what, 15 years. I don't know how old I was, but then and you dismiss it as a dumb Cheech and Chong movie. It's just like, that's comedy for you. People laugh hysterically, and then they're like, you're stupid. Like they just don't respect it.
Yeah, it's like the classic thing. Comedy never used to be, at least, nominated for any Academy Awards, although the Academy Awards are a joke. We could talk about that on the Patreon. But
got so many Patreons coming. I'm excited.
And also, I mean, the age-old joke we used to always talk about in Boston is like comedy's in the nightlife section. It's not in the arts section.
Yeah, it's like next to strip joints. It's next to strip joints.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking get a hand job at this masseuse or go see this comedian. Yeah, no, I mean it's not respected. And my theory about that is Aristotle. He wrote this book on poetics about drama, about tragedies. And that's like the blueprint for how tragedies are written. But he also wrote a thing on comedies that got lost.
Oh, interesting.
And I feel like if that was not lost, there would then be this great philosopher explaining that. But we don't have that at the cornerstone of our intellectual, the Renaissance movement that brought back Jesus Christ.
That impression really doubled the size of that puddle. That's what we need, though. You're right. We need a philosopher explaining why comedy is good. Are you
joking?
Important.
Or are you serious?
I'm completely joking. I mean, that's what feels like is ruining comedy right now.
But back then, in the very beginning, I think that would have. I don't know.
True.
I don't know. It's just, they don't get respected. They don't get like Academy Awards the way they should. The actors don't get Academy Awards the way they should. And and that, it's also like a lot of times you make people laugh and they just, and they'll call you like black people I didn't even realize if you make them laugh, they call you retarded. What kind of reward is that for making them laugh?
They call me the N-word when I make them laugh.
Oh, that's when you really make them laugh.
Yeah, that's when you really.
Maybe I'm bobbing in front of them. So Big Lebowski, I think it's just a great. To me, it's a movie that's all just about the details. It's about these beautiful details that have no purpose outside the details. The fact that his landlord does a ballet movement.
It's amazing. Well, it's so hard to watch with people that haven't seen it before because you want to. I always I find it frustrating because I'm like, I just want people to get it because a lot of people don't get it and they're like, what is this? This is insanity because it is confusing. And then there's these weird fantasy sequences and then the landlord is doing a ballet thing. But there's so many subtleties. And like you said, it keeps getting funnier and funnier. There's so many details. One of the funniest jokes in the whole fucking movie is with the landlord. And he goes, tomorrow's already the 7th. And he goes, far out. like the dude just thought he was making conversation about, like, isn't that crazy that it's already the 7th? And he's like, oh shit, I owe you rent. I mean, there's so many subtle moments that you're like, I'm just praying when I watch it with people that I'm like, I hope they get the subtlety of these jokes.
Well, just that scene alone, if you think about it, is so amazing. Just the landlord scene. And I think one of the genius things the Coen brothers do is whenever they write something, I think whatever the cliche is, the trope, they just go the other way, So instead of you'd think when you have a landlord asking for rent, you think Ace Ventura, you know what I mean? Ventura, where's the money? Right. And instead they go the other way, just have the most sheepish guy.
Right.
Just politely asking for the rent, but then also inviting him to his ballet recital. It throws the Coen brothers the most trope-free of any directors because they do the opposite of every trope. Not to mention that scene isn't even necessary in the movie. Him needing rent isn't it's just that whole scene is just a pure detail. Like rent is not a part of the plot.
Right. Well, it brings both characters home clear and that he's lazy and he just forgets to pay rent. It's not on his mind.
That's what I love. Like the movie is full of even though it's like a noir and has this crazy, it's a movie about details for detail's sake. You know what I mean? Like, everything is just amazing details. The fact that he's Shomer Shabbos and he bowls and he's constantly quoting like Lenin, like it's all just kind of like these amazing details for their own sake, which I think just make it so amazing. Because
so many great details, so many great jokes, and I had never noticed until more recently that there's something fun about this old campus radical hippie guy who now keeps having all these encounters with all these kind of right-wing guys. Yeah. Like he's got the Nixon poster because Nixon's a bowler. So he kind of likes, right. He has this Nixon poster, I guess, ironically. And then he's quoting George Bush from the beginning. He's kind of picking up on George Bush kind of declaring war And he picks that up. He starts using that. And it's fun that the check is 9/11.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the check he fills out is September 11th, 1991.
Interesting. Oh, I didn't realize that.
And the movie was pre 9/11, so that's fun.
Yeah, prescient.
And then also, the Big Lebowski looks exactly like Dick Cheney, which is like he's dead on Dick Cheney. And then, there was another one that's interesting to me.
Well, you have the nihilists who are kind of like German, and they see them as Nazis.
Right. Oh, and then there's Nancy Reagan, she was the first lady of the nation at that time.
Right. Yeah. The successful kind of conservative people around, and he's like this loser who's actually the one who like is much wiser about life. Ultimately, he enjoys life the way it should be enjoyed, and he's authentic. He's the one guy in it who's like authentic and not pretending to be someone else. The other Lebowski is the one just is a complete fraud,
Of course, yeah, completely. And he's all the things he accuses the dude of being. I mean, there's so many layers, and that's what's so great about every Coen Brothers movie. That's why they're ultimately the best screenwriters to me.
And there's such amazing. To me, they're not just the best screenwriters. I think out of any director, they have the best balance of visually great directors and amazing screenwriters. Like that balance of the two.
Right.
I don't think anyone is as good at that at both visually filmmaking and screenplays at the same time. I mean, obviously Scorsese is one of the great filmmakers, but he doesn't really write his movies for the most part, Yes,
I agree. And Woody is also great, but
doesn't know how to move a camera. You know what I mean? Like it's I know it's fine, but but you have like out of the guys who really do both, Tarantino, Wes Anderson, P.T. Anderson, I feel like the Coen Brothers are just like the best at both,
No, they're the best. I mean, they're my second favorite director behind Scorsese, but if we're going to combine, they would have to be number one, I guess. And shout out to Roger Deakins, who is like the DP on most of these movies. I don't know if he is on Lebowski. I'm not 100% sure about that. But
also, you were saying something before, which I just, I love writing screenplays and I love dialogue and I love the detail in dialogue. And one of the things I love in Big Lebowski is you keep on seeing Jeff Bridges just repeating what people say.
Yeah,
you see him be a sponge. He does that throughout the movie. He's like, this aggression will not stand. The parlance, he uses parlance the way Julianne Moore, except he uses it completely. So you see him literally as a character learning and like repeating things, which makes him feel so real,
Yeah, and it makes him feel like a fucking pothead too.
A pothead, but he's absorbing information. You're getting to see the characters absorb information, that's the thing about the movie. The movie might not really be about much, but it's about everything in a sense that you just see these fully realized characters,
which is cool.
Which is the best.
But so going back to Walter, I do believe, and I've been saying this for years, that Walter, John Goodman's character, is without question, pound for pound, the funniest movie character in history, because I think absolutely everything he says and does
is hilarious.
Fucking hilarious. It's amazing to have a character that is that rich in comedy. I mean, everything he does, every face he makes, the look, everything about it is unbelievably funny.
And this is maybe why I think it's the funniest movie of all time. If you think of him as the funniest character of all time, and then technically Jeff Bridges would be the straight man, and yet he's also a fucking hilarious character. I mean, what other movie has two of the funniest characters? Like literally the straight man in that situation is still one of the funniest characters ever,
I don't know. Maybe you've ever heard of this trio, the Marx Brothers.
I mean, I don't
I understand there's four of them. One's not funny.
Zeppo. That's my favorite. What we should do one to annoy people where I just talk about how Zeppo is my favorite. I'm kidding. That's like an old Woody Allen joke. She's talking about like a humorless woman he's dating. She thought Zeppo was the funniest Marx brother. Or her favorite Marx brother was Zeppo. I mean, what are your? I gotta ask, like, because it's a comedy, it's hard. Like, what parts make you laugh the most in this movie?
The funniest part. I mean, the entire sequence of him, Walter picking up the dude to go pick up the ransom. That whole sequence with CCR playing is the funniest sequence in any movie. I mean, it's better than anything, John Hughes or the Zucker brothers. It's amazing. The whites, I mean, the laundry, I beat it out of them, the machine gun, every single thing in that scene is unbelievable. And then ultimately the way it ends and him just being like, let's go bowling. it's just an unbelievable button to the funniest sequence in history.
And the great slapstick moment, one of the greatest slapstick moments, seeing the Uzi just hit the ground and just start firing at the car that he just fell out of.
It's amazing. It's perfect. The other moment, of course, is when the guy is beating the shit out of the when Walter's beating the shit out of the Corvette, and the guy comes out and beats the shit out of the dude's car, and then the cut to them driving, and we realize that they've gotten in their In-N-Out burger. And I don't know this, I hope they didn't shoot any footage at all at In-N-Out, and that was the plan all around, to just cut to them with the windshield completely blasted out, the dude looking pissed, and the other two pretty much unfazed, and they finally got their In-N-Out burger. Because in movies, the best thing, and this is obviously pointed out a lot, the best things are the things you don't see.
Yeah.
So the idea that they had to approach that subject after his car's been beat to shit of like, hey, can we stop at In-N-Out? And he had to give in at some point, is just amazing to allude to that without showing.
To know that there's a world outside of that. That's how real they feel, that there's a whole world outside that you're imagining. And also it's just like the fact that In-N-Out burger's in the fucking movie. It's just like, this movie is all fucking flavor. It's just like, it's just there, to be interesting. A lot of times the Coen brothers talk about shit, and they're like, let's do this because we find it interesting. You know,
right.
And so much of the movie that they love the In-N-Out burger, and they see this as an opportunity to get an In-N-Out burger, and that becomes part of it. And the fact that they're discussing this while their landlord is doing ballet, and the fact that John Goodman references it, he goes, once this is done, this what have you is done. Like the fact that like the what have you here, like like it's just so many amazing fucking details just for detail's sake. It puts every other movie to shame in how boring and by the books it is, and how they don't have those details. They're just going to the next scene to investigate. It's so much not about the plot, this movie. It's so much about everything around the plot.
And it's similar to a Marx Brothers movie, really, where there's three of them, and the plot is sort of secondary to the jokes in a lot of ways. Another great moment, of course, is when Donnie's like, oh, how'd that go, by the way? And he goes, pretty good. Dude's car got dinged up. I mean, the fact that he assesses that as going pretty good, like his leg is all fucked up. They didn't get the money. They, as far as they know, a woman's going to be murdered. And he's like, that went pretty well.
Well, that's the other hilarity about the movie. So you have John Goodman, who's crazy and really crazy and full of rage. And then you have Jeff Bridges, who's the dude. And yet they both basically switch places the whole movie. Jeff Bridges is freaking out the whole time, and Walter's just kind of calm a lot.
Right.
About the crazy, like, fuck it, let's go bowling. Like they kind of switch personalities during the movie. Because that's what's so funny. Like Jeff, apparently originally when they filmed it, Jeff Bridges was doing everything in a really laid back tone, like, dude, and they told him to like tone it down a little. They're like, that's too much. Actually get worried. And that's what's so funny. You're actually seeing, even though Jeff Bridges is like a dude, like you see him freak out a decent amount in the movie, you know?
Right.
And you see Walter just like not just be ridiculously.
I thought of two other moments that make me laugh every single time, and they're both Walter. Is one when they're walking back to the car after he pulls the gun, and he says, I did not know that. Well, and he goes, well, it's all water under the bridge. In his mind, this is already, it's fine. Like he's just, that's such a great character detail. And that's what they're the best at writing these characters. The idea that in Walter's mind, that's all taken care of. It's not even a big deal. The cops are arriving, which I found out later is an inside joke about LA police. That the cops are getting there like 45 minutes later. That's supposed to be a subtle joke about LA police. And he just goes, well, it's all water under the bridge. And then the other moment, which
real quickly, just going back to that moment, another thing that just makes it so, the thing I'm pretty sure he says, I did not know that, is about Smokey being a pacifist, right?
Right.
So the fact also that Jeff Bridges saying the reason you shouldn't pull a gun out on someone is because he's a pacifist.
Right. And he's like, oh shit.
Like, oh, he's a pacifist. Oh, he was a conscientious objector. That's why I shouldn't aim a loaded gun at him.
Right.
I mean, there's the layers of how hilarious every moment in that are like endless.
Right. And then, and then he's like, it's all water under the bridge. But then the other moment, which I really think everybody should pause the podcast and go watch this fucking subtle moment, because it makes me burst out laughing, cry laugh, when he's in the coffee shop. They're in the coffee shop and they're talking about the toe, and Goodman's screaming, and he's all pissed off and screaming. And the waitress comes over and goes, excuse me. There's a subtle face where he reacts to her. Goodman looks up and he like changes his disposition. it's the funniest moment of the whole movie, where he's just screaming and she's like, "Excuse me, sir," and he's like, he does like a look up and smile.
I gotta rewatch. I don't even. I mean,
it's unbelievably.
Like
play a clip here.
I like it's like he like resets, like he's all angry that he kind of resets, kind of.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" He's trying to be like pleasant to this lady, even though he was just screaming about dying in the mud.
Well, that's the thing. He can scream and then just go back like everything's normal immediately. He gets really calm after he freaks out. You know what I mean?
Which is also great. I mean, that's such a great disposition or juxtaposition of, you have this Vietnam vet and this other guy who was like a campus take to the streets guy, and they're best friends. I mean, there's something so sweet about it, and you have both sides of the 60s represented now by these two fucking burnout lunatics in the 90s, basically.
Just love bowling. And that's the other thing. Like, I mean, I know you hate when I bring up Sopranos, but Sopranos and Big Lebowski are very similar in the sense that you see people's interests, and that kind of, you don't see that in a lot of movies. You don't see what characters like, and they don't feel as real, but you know what people like in this movie. You know?
Right.
You know their interests, and that makes you feel more connected to them. You know John Goodman is really into Judaism. You know he's like really into bowling. You know these things that, like, you know, Jeff Bridges hates the Eagles. You know what I mean? You know their opinions, you know their views, and it makes you feel, even though this is obviously like a very broad comedy, the characters actually feel more real than most movies. They
Absolutely.
And I want to tell you some of my favorite parts.
That's why you asked.
Well, of course. Of course. I mean, is that why? Does no one not ask that?
Right.
I mean, frankly, I feel like I let you go for a long time before bringing it up.
That's fair. All right, give me your funny moment.
That'd be a funny prank to play if someone asks it's clearly their own thing, and then you finish it and just immediately leave before they get to it. You know, like, what's your top 5 favorite horror movies? And they just say it and run away immediately before they can do it. I don't know. Anyway, so I remember my dad, the cough laugh. I remember a big one for him. I'll do his first. I mean, he was doing it the whole time, but a big one is when John Goodman comes in the house with the writer. That the kid's father happens to be this TV writer that John, a TV show that John Goodman loves.
Right.
And when you see him in that insane iron, like, it's just like some kind of version of an iron lung where he's just like on a respirator. And when John Goodman's like, does he still write? Right. And she goes, no, he has health issues. That part was like, that part was like, that was like a huge coughing fit. So for me, my actually favorite part doesn't involve John Goodman, I think, in terms of my biggest laugh.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to try to guess, but I mean, I can't even think of what it could be.
Well, I'll just tell you this. So the thing that make me like really gut laugh uncontrollably does involve something where it's something like I would be afraid to be in that situation because it's so awful. And that, like, the sense of danger sometimes just kills me. So it's 2 things in the scene. The dude is smoking a joint in the tub, and the nihilists break in and just start bashing shit. And just, first of all, just his reaction to them breaking into their place and bashing shit, him just calmly being like, this is a private residence, man. Like, the fact, just the calmest reaction to people breaking in. And just, dude, this is a private residence.
I don't do that. Yeah, no, it's amazing.
And then when they come in, they take the ferret down. He's like, nice marmot. And when they throw the ferret into the water and just hold him in the tub, that shit fucking destroys me. I don't know. It's something about like pain or like fear that just makes me like, is that form of slapstick fucking makes me just like convulse with laughter for like 5 minutes.
Well, the funniest non-Walter moment is the response to that moment is when he's fucking hammering the wood in the 2x4 into the floor.
Oh,
I mean, that's just such a good, that's almost like a Naked Gun gag. And the other subtle gag in there is there's like 300 nails in it and they're all bent and fucked up.
Well,
like he's been hammering nails in there and he keeps bending them and missing them and fucking up.
Bending them, missing them. That's actually a detail I didn't even notice. But yeah, bending them, missing, and then the fact that he does it on the wrong side of the door. Like, this movie's full of amazing dialogue, and yet it also has like incredible slapstick.
Exactly. And that's what makes it such a great depiction of a pothead, too, because it's not like, dude, where's my car? Ugh. It's little details like he spends a lot of time on a project thinking he's doing something smart, but he forgot to check which way the door opens. That, to me, is like a great depiction of a pothead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, exactly. And there is like so many broad things, like making like the fact that he listens to just the sound of bowling, like the fact that he just listens to bowling games. But like I mean, to me, it's like every moment is funny in this movie. It's just kind of perfect. It's kind of like just heaven as comedy. It's just always funny. And I honestly think even the best comedies have like slow parts or kind of get, even the greatest comedies like Blazing Saddles. There's a certain point where like it's so funny, but then it's like, all right, kind of like a lot of great comedies burn out kind of at some point. But this movie is just kind of perfectly funny the entire time, and it's like it's like so exciting the entire time. I just think it's just like the most perfect comedy, which is interesting because like the Coen brothers aren't like these comedic. I mean, they do funny movies, but there's these great directors. So it's funny that to me the best comedy isn't by Mel Brooks or Woody Allen; it's by the Coen brothers. But that's truly how I feel. I don't think any. I guess when it comes to character-based humor, no other movie makes me laugh as much.
They're so good at that. I mean, there's so much. I mean, Raising Arizona is a straight up comedy. I mean, Barton Fink has hilarious moments. Fargo is hilarious without it being like a full on comedy. Buster Scruggs has a lot of comedy. Hell Caesar is like a comedy.
But I will say Big Lebowski is like somehow like even light years away. I mean, I guess Raising Arizona is obviously their other movie that is so broadly funny, but like Big Lebowski is so light years ahead of all of them, I think, in terms of just being
I guess I'm
so funny the whole time.
I'm just pushing back a little bit on the idea that like they are comedic, right? They make serious movies, and
I guess that's the thing. Movies. They just have a. It's amazing to me that, but it's amazing for me. The best comedy is not by someone who dedicates their whole thing to make comedy. It's not Mel Brooks. It's the Coen brothers. You know what I mean?
But
to me, it's like
they're similar to Woody in that way, in that there's some straightforward comedies and then there's some very serious dramas, and they're great at both.
Well, except I don't think Woody's great at both. But like that's from a different discussion from a time we already had where you hated me. But let's not bring that. But I mean, Big Lebowski. Yeah, it's just I read something too about how there's a scene with remember David Thewlis in it, who's like that guy who's just like, what do you do? Like what he's like that David Thewlis? He's like the guy who's in the apartment with Julianne Moore, who's just like
he
really
looks like snobbish. John Waters a little bit.
Yeah, he's really snobbish to and the dude's like, what the fuck's your problem, man? Apparently when they wrote that scene, they felt like there was too much exposition in that scene with Julianne Moore. So they just threw him in there to make it seem like there's other shit going on. Oh, and to me, that's like the whole movie. It's like there's so much other shit. It's a movie that has a plot that's insane and then throws so many details around it that just make it so fucking unbelievably funny. And there's something a little by the end that's a little profound about it. Like,
very profound. It's sweet. I mean, and then the moment where Walter hugs the dude after Donnie dies, it's really sweet. And you think this is a character that is in need of a hug. He's a fucking Vietnam vet with PTSD, he's still taking care of his ex-wife's dog, and he's got a really sad life. And he finally kind of hugs them. It's kind of beautiful. And it's such a Buddhist movie of the dude abides. He's just accepting, and then he has a baby on the way, making him the Big Lebowski.
That's right. And he just accepts everything, and he's not this guy who's trying to be something he's not or be super successful. He just accepts life how he is. He is, and even though he does go a little crazy in it, like it's amazing how so much crazier other people would be. Like he's fairly laid back. Like he just basically gets annoyed at John Goodman for taking a gun out, but it's probably the most laid back response anyone else would have to that, So it's like he is just like going through it, and it's a profound. Yeah, to me, it's perfect in every way. There is some like philosophy that's profound, and I do think like it is also just a movie that's just in love with the nuances of it, and it makes you just love the idea of characters and character behavior and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's extremely profound, and it's about acceptance. And we've also had this entire conversation about how funny it is, and without mentioning the Jesus.
I know.
It's also hilarious. And by the way, I didn't put this together for a long time. Is that when you first see him, you see him through the eyes of the dude, and Hotel California is playing, and we find out later he loathes the Eagles. So he sees this rival that he hates with this music that he
hates. Oh, you're really good with the little Easter eggs or whatever. That's a good point. Yeah. Hotel California. Smart. Yeah. Which, by the way, I feel like him hating the Eagles, that's kind of, there's a couple of moments of movies that really hurt certain artists. Like
absolutely
him saying, I hate the Eagles. Paul Giamatti saying, fuck Merlot, which really lowered, apparently, really hurt Merlot prices.
And Rain Man and Kmart.
Rain Man and Kmart, and my least favorite, Family Guy making fun of Randy Newman, because everyone after that thought Randy Newman was like a joke, but they didn't know that he was like this amazing musician full of hilarious satirical music, you know?
Brilliant, like one of the most brilliant writers of any kind.
Yeah, of any kind, but people think he's just like some kind of doofus because of Family Guy. But I also just Disney. Really liked it. Yeah.
He makes all these Disney movies, but they don't realize that, he's like,
but I think people now like, I really do think that hurt people's perception of the Eagles. I mean, that and the fact that they're overplayed on the radio, but the Eagles are great.
Of course. I mean, there's a good case that they're the best American band of all time.
I mean, that's the greatest thing. Oh, American.
I'm saying you can make a case. I don't think that personally, but
I just realized all like the great bands are from England. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I would put Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers over them, but I mean, like do you put Aerosmith above I mean, most of these great bands are, I mean, I guess the band, but this is a whole other topic.
The End of the Innocence is one of the most beautiful songs. Is that solo?
That's Don Henley's solo. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just really like that song.
It's about right.
No, but I mean, that and Desperado are two of the greatest songs.
Desperado's the band.
What?
I said Desperado. Desperado's the band. The Eagles,
band. Yeah.
I mean,
I thought you were saying it's from the band. I was like, well, that's crazy. It's a real Abbott and Costello routine. Because you brought up the band.
Right. I understood after your reaction made me understand because I was like, something just went wrong here.
But yeah, no, the Eagles are great. But yeah, we should move on. But it's just the funniest movie of all time. And I do this maybe will be a combo. I think Fargo and Big Lebowski, for me personally, is the greatest two-punch in American cinema. Like just one movie back to back. Yeah, I think that's the greatest two-punch.
Oh, interesting. Boy, that is I've never thought of that topic, but you might be right on that.
I mean, there's other ones. I'm pretty sure Coppola maybe did. Wait, no, he didn't do Godfather 2 back to back, did he?
I think maybe The Conversation is between those two movies.
There you go.
But I don't know.
But Scorsese did like Taxi Driver and
New York was after.
Yeah,
Raging Bull after Raging Bull, I think was King of Comedy, possibly.
Oh yeah,
there was 6 movies before Goodfellas.
So yeah, I really think Fargo and Big Lebowski, one of the great crime movies of all time, and one of the great comedies of all time. I think that's like, I mean, the range in those two movies, how they're in some ways very similar and also just completely different. Like, I think that's the greatest two-punch.
It's interesting because that was kind of like a letdown, I think, at the time to people because they made this masterpiece.
Yes.
And then Big Lebowski came out, and I think people were like, what?
I think that's people's reaction to genius a lot. It's like you don't give them, it's the same thing with Dylan. They wanted Fargo again. And instead they gave them the greatest comedy of all time and they weren't ready for it at the time. But genius looks ahead. And clearly now people fucking, Big Lebowski is so many people's favorite movie, No,
I felt that way when my second album came out. I felt like people reacted in a way that was a little disappointed. But all right. So you want to talk about Fargo? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, let's talk about Fargo because I have a theory about Fargo No Country, so we can parlay that.
Great. All right. Well, Fargo to me is a masterpiece. It's just outside of my top 10, top 15, top 20, I'll say.
Good.
And what's that?
Top 5 for me.
Oh, wow. Well, it's just, I don't know how to start. It's just a fucking amazing, amazing movie. It's brilliant. It's so funny. It's thrilling. I don't know. You go and I'll color in, I guess, because I'm sure you have a lot you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you all asked for Coen Brothers, and we love Coen Brothers. So once again, this is going to be our Chris Farley on SNL doing the interviews. That was great, that song that you wrote. But like, that is how we feel. I mean, like Fargo, to me, what makes Fargo so amazing is the opening has this kind of comedic feel. And those guys seem like idiots, And then there's this amazing tonal shift where these guys who seem like morons kill a bunch of people. And, and so much of that's true to life. Like, what's the coup on the Capitol? Like, morons can do awful things. And there's a real tonal shift when when he kills that police officer and ends up killing the two people walking by, you're like, oh fuck, this started as kind of like a fun movie, and this shit got real serious. And there's an amazing tonal shift in that moment. It's one of the great like tonal changes, I think.
Well, and also the other change that happens is when you first sort of meet them, it feels like Steve Buscemi's the leader because he does all the talking. So it feels like and Greer or whatever you say his name, Graham or whatever. He seems like a retard. He's just sitting there with his head back and he's drunk and
which is a thing the Coen brothers are. The Coen brothers are great at showing people who talk a lot, and they're great about showing people who don't talk at all. They're great at developing characters through silence, like Steve Buscemi. And what Peter Stormare literally has one line in that opening scene, I believe.
Yes, or your fucking wife. And then Buscemi repeats it, and which gives you a little taste that this guy's probably running the show. But you sort of think that. Side note: I heard that's a subtle joke in Big Lebowski that Donnie never gets to say anything because he never shuts up. Steve Buscemi never shuts the fuck up in Fargo. So the next movie they made, everyone keeps saying, "Shut the fuck up, Donnie," and that was supposed to be their little wink because all their movies are pretty connected, including Fargo and Raising Arizona, both about female cops who are trying to have a baby. One's trying to steal a baby, and the other one is pregnant.
And apparently there were some dream sequences in Fargo originally that they cut out.
Oh, interesting. I'm glad they did. But
I know, right?
So that's such a great shift, too. Of course, the great scene. That's what's interesting about Fargo, too, is that most of the big stuff happens in Brainerd.
Yeah, I know. I actually, like an idiot, one time I was on the road. I was doing that, who are those guys? The Funny Business. You know, that shit where you're driving in the Arctic coast of fucking the Upper Peninsula or whatever?
Yeah.
I drove by Fargo and I drove through looking for the Paul Bunyan statue.
Right.
And then remembered that the Paul Bunyan statue, I looked it up as I literally got off was out of my way to go to Fargo, and then realized A, the Paul Bunyan statue is in Brainerd, and B, it's not actually there anyway. Like they moved that in there for that scene.
Home of Paul Bunyan, Babe the Blue Ox. Yeah, we got a big statue out there. I mean, it's just so subtly funny. I mean, it's amazingly funny. And that relationship is so great. And then you later find out that he barely, the Native American there, Shep Proudfoot, he's like, don't know him, don't vouch for him. So he doesn't even know the Steve Buscemi character.
Which kind of is a little hole in the movie because he doesn't know him. And yet when he breaks in to beat him up, A, it's weird that he knows where he is. And B, Steve Buscemi does seem to know him. And I've never figured that out.
What do you mean?
He's like, Shep, I'm banging this broad. And then Shep starts beating him up.
I don't think he says Shep.
Yeah.
He said, what the fuck are you doing? I'm banging this broad. He said, smoke a peace pipe like he's a Native American.
No, I believe he says Shep. I believe he refers to him as he knows him. And I was confused because I was like, how does he know where he is, first of all?
Well, that part is just he's a criminal. He's a fucking professional criminal, and professional criminals can figure this stuff out.
But Buscemi refers to him. I mean, comment, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe he refers to him as Shep, as if they know each other. I've never understood that.
I feel like he does. I feel like it's more likely that you're mishearing than the greatest screenwriters of all time just fucked up and had him.
Or there's just something I'm not getting. There's like a world outside of it that I don't get. You know, like maybe he said he doesn't know him, but he does know him. You know what I mean? I believe the line is, "What the fuck are you doing, Shep? I'm banging this broad."
Are you
now,
sure
maybe he
shit?
just. I think he says Shep. Now maybe he just saw a Native American and threw out Shep and just really got it right. Maybe, but like, I mean, I almost kind of want to play it now. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just seems weird. I've certainly never noticed that before, and it seems like strange that the Coen brothers would make a fuck up like that. But maybe I don't know.
Fuck. I guess we'll just have to. Well, I mean, people who are watching, who's right? Does he say Shep?
Even if I knew your name and you bursted in while I was having sex, started beating me up, I wouldn't be like, Raanan. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but let's not get stuck on that detail anyways that you're wrong about, because we gotta, let's talk about how great the movie is.
All right. Okay. So another thing, talk about a couple things, but another thing, I always found it, I remember, so this was Gene Siskel's favorite movie, or one of them.
Okay.
And I remember he always said that what is so great about when he sees Mike, what's his last name? The Asian fella?
Oh, I forget.
Mike Yakimura?
Yeah, I mean, why even try to pronounce it? We're gonna get, I mean, this is like,
gonna get canceled.
This isn't the 90s here, for God's sakes. You're like, the guy with the eyes.
But But Jesus was like, that scene's amazing because this movie's so good. You're so invested in the characters that they had the scene that has nothing to do with the plot.
No, that's wrong.
And that's totally wrong. That's the moment.
It's a huge point in the plot.
That's the moment where she realizes not to trust people and goes back to William H. Macy. And I never understood why I said that, because that is like actually the most crucial part, because she's naive. She's very smart, but she's a little naive, and she loses her naivete in that moment. And that's what allows her to kind of solve the case.
Exactly. It's the most crucial moment in the entire film, and it's hilarious. But I have to say, I've thought for years, I just thought it was like, I didn't get it, and I thought it was just a comedic moment. I watched that movie 25 times before I realized what was going on.
Me too. I mean, I was a kid when I watched. I mean, you're a little older than me, but I was a kid when I watched the movie. How old were you? Were you like 20 or
what? Are you serious? I was 14. It came out in 96. I was like a freshman in high school. But the first time I saw it, I remember my father and I rented it, and he died laughing. We died laughing at the break-in scene where he's just looking while she's watching a movie, and the fucking wife doesn't react. She's just looking like confused.
Which goes back to the whole disturbing shift in the movie that these guys really are so bumbling and so dumb. And
Similar to Big Lebowski, by the way, the scene you were talking about, where he's like, this is a private residence. They both don't know how to react to somebody breaking into their houses.
It's so awkward and goofy, but like dumb people do awful shit. You know what I mean? Just because they're like losers. You know, this isn't a movie where like these great assassins, you know, come and, you know, these are idiots, but they're also extremely, one of them is, you know, they're, but I don't know. Peter Stormare is definitely a sociopath. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so there's like a lot of like, you see them as bumbling idiots, and then you see all the fucking damage they cause and all the heartbreak. And it really, the movie is funny, but it has this tragic weight to it, that, and this view of good and evil, of like, of how Marge and her husband are like full of all this love and promise, and they're so supportive, and she's so supportive of his doing the, which is another amazing fucking detail. The fact that he's entering a competition to win a drawing for a postage stamp. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you look at them, like symbolically, they represent love and creation. They're having a baby. He's an artist. They're creating things, you know? Meanwhile, Buscemi and Peter Stormare are just destroying everything. You know, it's like the conflict between creativity and destruction in the movie, you know?
Yeah, and then they're obviously unhappy, and Marge and Norm, son of a Gunderson, which is another hilarious, amazing detail.
And they're both seen as couples in a way. You kind of see them both watching TV. They're both kind of the couples in the movie. And there's one like beautiful couple, and there's other couple where they end up killing each other. You know what I mean?
Right. And we haven't even gotten into Wade, who's the real bad guy in the movie. I mean, that's like the real bad guy.
You don't realize how awful he is. It's almost like he's so pathetic, which is another great trope thing. It's like we assume pathetic people are somehow good, but this is an example of a pathetic guy who has no humanity, and it almost takes you a while to realize the depth of his lack of humanity.
Absolutely. Even though he's kidnapping his own wife, you're still kind of like, all right, I'm on board with this.
Because he's just like a pathetic. We're used to associating nebbishness with people like us, you know, good people.
Right. And then his dad seems mean, so you kind of feel for him.
Well, one of my favorite lines in terms of just beautiful screenplay, just explaining everything, is when he's back at home and his father's there, and he's trying to get that deal, and he goes, "This could be really good for Jan and the kid, you know, me and Jan and the Gene and the kid." And he goes, "Gene and the kid will be fine." When he doesn't include him in that line is that line. I love screenwriting moments like that, where you just have one line that shows a world of fucking history. You know what I mean? In a world of it's one of the greatest lines. I fucking love that line so much.
The line is Gene and Scotty never have to worry. But
I don't have a great memory.
Well, I know it's not even that great memory. It's like I'm like a savant. It's not even like a savant thing. I've watched it 500 times.
But I have like that great line that
that you just butchered. But no, and I love the little details too with William H. Macy, his office where they shoot through those blinds. So he's already in prison, which is a great foreshadow.
Oh yeah,
shooting from outside the window through the blinds. So he's behind bars right away when you see him, and he's wearing a striped shirt also.
Oh, that's great.
It kind of implies
he's an Easter egg man. You fucking see.
Well, I love these things. I'm obsessed with them. But
also, it's like he's so like you feel for his stress the whole time. It's kind of something we kind of the famous thing in Psycho where the car goes down,
right,
and it's not going down, and you're worried. even though he's a piece of shit, you are worried for him because it's just a fear of being trapped in the thing. I mean, one of the great moments in cinema history of just being so overwhelmed is when he comes home after his father got killed and he has the body in the trunk and his son is asking about him. He's like, I'm just going to go to sleep.
He goes, I'm going to bed.
Like that moment of just like, I'm just gonna sleep. Like it's just such an amazing. You just feel like even though he's a piece of shit, you feel for him. I guess it's not sympathy but empathy.
Fully, and because he's mixed up in shit he shouldn't be mixed up in, which we've all had that feeling. But also that moment before that when you just see the trunk open up in the brand new car, that boom, like he opens it and he has to. You realize, like I said earlier, things you don't see. He has to pick up his dead father-in-law and get him into the trunk of his own car, and then drive back and go, I'm going to bed.
And not to mention driving past the kid who got shot in the fucking
right.
You know what I mean? Like it's just
that great face.
I mean, it's like I mean, one of the great moments. I mean, there's so many great moments, but also when what's his God? I'm so because we have a rewatch. I mean, I know the movie so well, but I don't remember the names. But what's Gunderson's second in command? Come on, Rain Man, help me out here.
What do you mean?
The guy who's Gunderson, the father, who's always the guy who's always with him.
No, well, Wade Gunderson is what's his
I'm
show,
sorry.
Isn't it?
Wade Gunderson. Who's the father's name? What's his name?
Hold on, I'll think of it in a second. But I forget his buddy.
Jerry. No, yeah, Bob.
Oh yeah, you're right. Jerry Lundegaard. Gunderson is
right. But Bob, what's his second in command? Who's always talking about, Bob, whatever, thinks it's a good idea. That guy.
Yeah.
Like when that guy asked Wilovich, basically, what about have you talked to what's the kid's name?
Scotty.
Have you talked to Scotty at Wilovich? And he's like, oh yeah,
right, Scotty.
No,
it's beautiful.
Which is an amazing moment. It's such an amazing moment too, because we are that audience member. We are like him in that moment. We're like, oh yeah. He never once thought about the kid in all this, and we also didn't. But then it's that moment where like, but he probably should have.
Right. Great detail in Scotty's room, by the way. He has the accordion, the king of polka, and then he has a Whitesnake poster also. So he's kind of caught in this weird thing.
Square, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I thought of 3 moments that are amazing. The moment early on when he thinks he's got the deal and he might not need him, and they're talking about he thinks he's going to sell the deal for the parking lot.
Yeah.
And he goes, if I wanted to do that, I'd go talk to old Bill Deal. And he goes, is he still at Savings and Loan? And he's like, wait, guys. It's like, that's an amazing detail that's not in any other kind of movies where they just get distracted.
I love that moment of them just completely forgetting. They care so little about him. They're more interested in just talking about this other guy. Like, there's a great moment. Have you ever seen the movie Happiness?
With Will Smith?
No, that's Pursuit of Happiness. Happiness is by Todd Solondz. It's a very dark comedy, but John Lovitch is a character who like works at this office and he commits suicide because a woman there like kind of won't date him. And she's at office and she finds out he commits suicide. She's so upset. He's like a total loser. She's so upset. And she's like, John commits suicide. And no one in the office, he used to work there. No one in the office remembers him. And they're like trying to remember him. And then one of them goes, yeah, he had a lot of acne on his face. Like that one actor, the Latino actor with the acne. What's that actor's name? He has the three different names. And then you just see them completely go off forgetting that guy who committed suicide, just trying to remember Edward James Olmos's name. It's a great way to show how people devalue someone by just what they choose to be distracted by.
Right. I mean, it's amazing.
I'm not
moment.
a bet, Wade.
We're not a bet.
We're not. God damn it. And that great shot of him scraping off the ice out of the car and just having a little meltdown. The
shot before, like from up above, like this of moral viewing of him just completely isolated it's just
so minuscule, so fucking small. But like, once again, that is like, I feel like they always do the opposite thing. They talked about this in Inside Llewyn Davis when he drives by the exit where his kid is living.
Right.
They're like, in every other movie, he'd go there. But we're like, no, he's got to keep on driving. They do the opposite thing you expect from a movie. And the fact that the guy who concocted this plan is so nebbishy to the point where you almost like him, to the point where you forget how awful he really is. You know what I mean? And like, and that's just it's so interesting to fucking watch.
And there's so many moments too that give you windows into the sociopathy or whatever. When he's like, how's Gene? He's like, who's Gene? Jimmy's like, who? And then and of course Graham, or however you say fucking Peter Stormare's name, is so much he's so much more removed. He gives a fuck even less. I mean, this is all business. But that whole sequence with the cop, and he put that back in your wallet, please, and step out of the car, please. That whole sequence is just amazing, and that's just pure thriller cinema with the car chasing, and he flicks the cigarette out. That doom doom. That music is unbelievable.
But the abruptness of, I mean, I keep on saying tonal shift, and they'll keep on the comments go, how many times are you gonna say fucking tonal shift? But the abruptness of feeling like in a moment you're watching something that was kind of comedic to something so intense and so fucked up, and going beyond, not to say you're watching this movie and not thinking bad shit might happen, but it going beyond those expectations to the point where he's killing 2 fucking people in a car. The fact that it really does, in terms of a legitimate surprise in a movie, it really, something's not going to work out, but it goes way beyond what you thought. And it's way and awful and disturbing than you thought. It's such a shocking thing to watch.
And you're talking about tonal shift. The very next moment, we're inside of a house with little geese painted on the wall, and it's a married nice couple sleeping. I mean, it's amazing. And the main character of the movie comes in like 40% of the way through the movie. She comes like 45 minutes in.
Well, it's something I want to talk about, No Country, because it's so much exactly where Tommy Lee Jones comes into the movie,
Right.
And in many ways, Tommy Lee Jones is Marge grown up, having no naivety and gone the other way and completely has no faith in humanity, Right. That's my big theory that you weren't that excited for me to hear.
Wait, say it again, because I had to check my Fargo notes before we move on to make.
We're not. I don't want to move on yet. I was trying. I spoke too soon. I think Tommy Lee Jones is like Marge Gunderson older and now has lost all faith in humanity.
Oh, interesting.
But anyway, but so
I got a couple more things that are.
No, I want to talk about Fargo too. Yeah, you go.
Well, one thing that's interesting is that there's a moment that reoccurs when they're in the car, and he goes, that great scene where he's like, 2 can play that game. Total fucking silence. He goes, it's the Sears Tower. And so he's driving, and he's very frustrated that he's getting nothing. And then the end of the film, Frances McDormand is in the car just talking, and it's a beautiful day. There's more than just a little money. Don't you know that? And they're sitting in total fucking silence. He's once again silent in the car with one of the main characters. And that's such a beautiful juxtaposition of this thing that he just doesn't talk in cars.
He doesn't talk in cars. And I mean, to get to the end, I mean, that scene is one of the great scenes in movie history of her just not fully understanding, and how this movie is about evil and crime, and Marge Gunderson is kind of regular people. And we are Marge, and we just don't get it. And there'll be a part of us that never fully understands it. It's ultimately a little inscrutable. And that's kind of the look Peter Stormare gives at the end, where it's like, he kind of smiles inscrutably. And you're like, yeah, there's just something we'll never fully understand about criminals who take people's lives like that.
But isn't there another layer, I might add, that we also don't fully understand what it takes to create a sociopath? And that in this, not to sound like a fucking millennial hipster, whatever, there's an amount of privilege that's also not being mentioned, where obviously Peter Stormare's character comes from a place that is not where she came from. Like, she's like, don't you understand?
From love. Yeah, she came from love.
Exactly. She came from love is exactly right. And she's going, don't you understand there's more to life than a little money? It's like, well, this guy obviously was abused and created somehow.
Right. They abused her. I mean, and they both look at the world so differently. The world for him is such a depressing place. You know what I mean? And for her, it's a really beautiful place, and it's like, yeah, you don't, there is something where he came from a completely different place, but there's ultimately, I feel like the movie, we always wonder what's the nature of evil, what's the nature of murder. And this movie ultimately does say, like, there is always going to forever be a disconnect,
right?
Like a way of not fully understanding it. And then her just kind of going back and just being grateful for what she has, But
similar to No Country, like you said.
Yes. But that scene at the end between them, where she's like, I just don't understand, that to me is like, elevates the movie to such a high degree, because there's so much about good and evil in this movie, and about, the blood on the snow too, all the time. And you're seeing, like, the sense of purity being destroyed by the blood, and the fact that Fargo is a perfect metaphor where everyone's so polite on the surface, but behind that politeness, people could be really awful,
Right. But I just have to mention too, because you alluded to the Psycho scene with the car going down, but I feel like the best analogy for that is the foot going down.
The wood chipper.
It's the exact scene. It's the exact moment. This guy needs to get rid of this.
Which is hilarious because like he's so determined to get rid of it. Even when the cop shows up, it seems like he's still trying to do it.
Right.
Like the gig's up. She's seeing him push a foot into a thing. But then he's so determined. She's like, police. And he's just like he's so.
It looks like he really nails her with that log, by the way. It hits her in the leg. I always think it looks so painful.
But it's also amazing just that, like, he's so terrifying in the movie. And then he just kind of runs away, like, and gets shot. Like, he seems so cowardly suddenly.
Yeah. And he's in pajamas.
He's in pajamas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's hard to understand, by the way. Another thing, I keep referencing things that you don't see in movies. And maybe we were to believe that backup came and they put her in her car, but like, he's like in the middle of a lake and he weighs 250 pounds and he still has arms and she gets him in the back. But I guess we're to believe that backup came and she waited and they helped get in the car. Cause I'm like,
that's a great point. Cause she knows like
him, he could still beat the fuck out of her.
But actually, I think you might be right. Cause doesn't backup kind of come at the end of their speech in the car? Or am I wrong?
No, they're driving when she's in the car.
Oh, they're driving and then they just kind of stop. Yeah.
He's like transporting her. Yeah.
Yeah. So either the cops already came or there's a hilarious scene we didn't see of her pregnant trying to handcuff a man who's kind of been grazed in the leg.
Yeah. He's huge. But I mean, it's just a brilliant film and also hilarious. I mean, it's so funny. The prostitutes are hilarious. I mean, the scene, Jose Feliciano, you got no complaints.
That line alone is just one of the great. You got no complaints.
Steve Buscemi making small talk with a prostitute is just amazing. I mean, it's just unbelievable. By the way, the landlord looks exactly like Tone Loc in the scene where Shep is beating the shit out of him. Or Keith Robinson.
Is that the landlord? You mean the guy who comes into the hall? I thought he was just like living in a different room.
Oh, maybe you're right.
Yeah. Oh, and then he beats that guy up and then comes back. Yeah.
Why do you assume he's not a landlord? Because he's black?
I mean, you said he looked like a bunch of black people he doesn't look like. So, I
think Keith Robinson, Tone Loc, and him all look very similar.
I mean, Tone Loc and Keith Rob, I guess. I don't know.
That's dead on.
It looks like Tone Loc and Don Cheadle.
Oh, I got a great line.
What?
Keith Robinson, Tone Stroke. Yeah, that's a good roast joke. I got to put that in my pocket if I ever.
Maybe it'll be like a roasting. Did he have a stroke or a heart? He had a stroke.
He had a stroke. Don't try to correct my fucking bit about my friend.
I assumed it was a stroke. I didn't know for a second it was a stroke. Did he also have a heart attack?
I don't think. Why are you being so mean about Keith? I mean,
I'm not being mean. I was just wondering. No,
I don't think so. No, he had a stroke. Yeah. He's doing great now.
He's doing great.
By the way, one of the funniest hangs of all time. By the way.
Yeah, he's great. I actually don't know him that well.
If you ever see him at the cellar, have a seat. You'll enjoy the night.
I've talked to him a little, but yeah, he's from what little I've seen, he's great.
And hate you, but
definitely after he hears this. But the other scene we also didn't talk about. One of my favorite scenes in the movie that involves none of the main characters of the movie, which is one of the great, hilarious, beautifully written scenes. Let me see if you can guess. It involves none of the main characters.
None of the main characters. Boy, I'm trying
It's
to.
It's a very
think.
short scene.
The scene where he tells the story. End of story.
Yeah, that part is just so amazing.
So I called it in.
So I called it in. End of story.
No, that's a great story because you get a little more context of Steve Buscemi, and it's fun to picture him at a bar, and he goes, what kind of girl action? What do I look like? He goes, well, what do I look like? I'm not the kind of guy that sets that up. I mean, that's such a hilarious line.
It's an amazing scene. It also just shows you like the Coen brothers do nothing obligatory. Now that is a scene that is with important exposition. And yet it's also just the most interesting scene of two people having a conversation. Like, you know what I mean? You at no point are you like, oh, this is an exposition scene. It's just hilarious. You got that right. Like just the looks like we're coming a strong one's cup. You know what I mean? Like just the way, the awkwardness of their exchange, the politeness, the way he tells that story is just so real and so hilarious. You forget the fact that this is important to the plot, you know?
It's a fun fact about that scene. It was unseasonably warm. And so there are actually puddles. Like he's like,
oh really?
There's a push broom and it's puddles everywhere, and they had no snow. They had a really hard time.
I heard it's actually really hard to make the movie, right? Because of the snow situation.
Yeah, I think it was really warm and they had no snow. It was a whole thing. But We got to move on soon because we're an hour and 20 minutes in. We still haven't talked about the best movie we're going to talk about.
Right. So, I mean, I guess I'll go. Yeah. So now we go to No Country, which is one of their few adaptations. Is that their first adaptation?
First,
outside of
I thought
the Odyssey. Well, I guess outside of the
Brother,
Odyssey.
We're Out Thou. Yeah.
So No Country is I mean, well, let me go back to my theory. It is very much structured like Fargo, where Peter Stormare is in many ways like Javier Bardem, and Tommy Lee Jones is Marge Gunderson as the older person who's gone from complete naivety. In the beginning of Fargo, she's naive. She loses some of that naivety. And this is her at the other end of she's seen too much and she has no faith left. And then you have Josh Brolin as William H. Macy. He's obviously not a bad guy, but someone caught in this, embroiled in this thing, so it's very structurally similar in that sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting
point
in theory.
That's the end of theory. That's it.
So I called it in.
So I called
end
it
of story.
End of theory. I guess the problem with saying a theory, you're like, oh, that's it. There's
You're probably right. I'm sure it's nothing. Which is also great that the other cop is just kind of like a bonehead, like, it's probably nothing. But it is the guy. He was talking to the guy.
But that's the same cop who doesn't get the licensing right at the beginning.
No,
right?
Different cop.
That's a different cop? Okay.
Yes, for sure. But that's amazing too.
Oh yeah. When she and then she tries to make him feel okay about it. She's like embarrassed for him.
It's amazing. Say, did you hear the one about? All right, anyways, let's talk about No Country, because No Country to me is in my top 10. I just think it's such a fucking masterpiece, and I think we've talked about this before on this podcast. Some people don't like this movie or they don't get it, and I always say the preface. I think I've said this before on this podcast. I always have to preface everybody when they're going to watch it for the first time. I say the movie is about Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes.
Just understand that he is the old man.
Yes.
He's old man. That's who it's about. Forget about Anton.
He has no country.
I know he's exciting. He's without a country, but that's what it's confusing. That if you not go in there with it, because you're like, everyone watches this movie and goes, well, what happened to the money?
Right.
And you're like, don't worry about the money.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, it's a philosophical movie, and it's also, I guess, similar. Even though Seven's a piece of shit, it's the good version of Morgan Freeman from Seven. You know what I mean? The good version of the cop who's seen too much, and except it's so much better than Seven, because at the end of Seven, for as dark as it is, at the end of Seven, he stays on the force. So it's still, the movie still pushes out on being that dark. It still has but in this movie, he literally is defeated. He literally does quit. You know what I mean? So you're watching a guy give up. I mean, you're watching a guy like being like, I don't get it, and I give up. And that's, to me, such a powerful thing to see in a movie, because there is a real, I don't know. The movie's dark.
It's dark. It's beautiful. I can't believe you brought up Seven in the same fucking.
Well, I'm making a good point, though. I mean,
it's a fine point, I guess. I mean, it's like talking about Jaws and bringing up fucking, I don't know,
Splash,
the remake of Point Break, and being like, well, there's waves.
It's a better version, but it is a better version, but it's a superior version of that character.
It's similar as a detective. I got you.
Except there's actually like levity in this. He actually says funny things, and the dialogue is like, which I have to credit to Cormac McCarthy, the guy who wrote the book. The dialogue is an amazing sense of that kind of Texan like way of talking. That's just so incredible the whole time.
It's incredible, and I love that. The juxtaposition, or whatever you call it, what's the word I'm looking for, of sheriff and the guy he's bringing around, the new guy, and the details of like his shirt's all pressed and one's tucked in and one's not, and it's beautiful. And Tommy Lee Jones's character's desire to not use a gun. He tells us about that opening monologue.
Yeah.
He's like, he never carried a gun. This guy never carried a gun. And when they knock on the door, he's like, guns out and up. And he's like, wait, what about your gun? Like, Tommy Lee Jones has this real desire to not carry his weapon because he's an old man who's identified with this old school. Ultimately, he goes, I can't walk around with no gun. I have to quit.
Yeah, I mean, he identifies with his old school, and he, and there's a point where he feels like it's changed. You know what I mean? He feels like things have gotten a lot worse. And they have that scene where he talks to the other cop, that great scene where they're just talking about guys with dyed hair and the nose, and there's just like, this whole thing of, I just don't understand the world anymore. And let me bring up 7 without you getting, because I'm saying it's a better version. In 7, Morgan Freeman's like, I really just don't understand the world anymore. And it stopped there. It's like the world's gotten worse. But there's this amazing moment in this movie where he goes to his old friend, the old cop, who has all the cats around.
Yeah, I think it's a relative.
It's a relative. Yeah. It's unclear. It's like
it's his uncle.
And the uncle tells a story and basically reminds him it's always been like this.
Right.
The world's always been a shitty place. And the movie, instead of falling into the bullshit kind of thing we all do, where like the world's gotten so much worse, he reminds him of something that's really true, which is like, no, that's nostalgia. The world's always been shit. And that's the reality of it. And it's vanity to think otherwise. You know
and that's what that's the great line. Yeah, that's vanity. That scene is so poignant, so beautiful, and that guy obviously has been beaten up and broken down. I mean, his house is a fucking piece of shit mess, and there's cats everywhere and cat shit.
But and he tells him, "Don't quit, don't quit." You know, the world's always like this, but you can't quit, and he does anyway. And it's like, I don't know. The movie gets to some harsh truths that like you don't really know how to feel about them after. It's not comforting exactly, but it's real. It's the comfort of watching something that you feel like is trying to look at reality for what it is, you know?
It's Tommy Lee Jones's best performance. It makes his performance in Fugitive look like a joke. I mean,
also think he got robbed at the Oscars. I think he should have won. I mean, I think Javier Bardem deserved to win, but I think Tommy Lee Jones should have been nominated for Best Actor, and I think he should have won.
I agree. I mean, I think he's incredible. He's incredible in that scene when he walks in and he says, "You look older." He goes, "I am older." It's just so beautiful. And then the last monologue too about the dream is just so overwhelmingly touching. It makes me like fucking tear up.
You feel someone so old and so defeated, but you feel the emotion of it. It's not the cliches of Seven. You know what I mean? It's the real feeling of someone who's just like experienced so much and lost so much of his illusions, so much of his ideals, and is still kind of trucking along. You fucking feel it on such a guttural level.
Right. And that other great line when he's talking to Carla and he says, "My mind wanders." Yeah. I mean, just the way he talks, the way he delivers those lines, there's such a sadness. There's such a fucking beauty. You just want to give the guy a goddamn hug.
And it works because it's not one note. It's like he is sad, but he still knows how to have like kind of tongue-in-cheek exchanges with his wife. He's still he's that old guy we know who's like, you see the defeat, but he's still trying to crack some jokes. You know what I mean? He's cracking jokes even though he's so sad, which just makes it sadder. So it feels real, you know?
There's a laugh out loud line in there when he's talking to the young deputy and he says, "Oh, I don't want to picture that." He goes, "I don't either." It's fucking great. I mean, it makes me laugh out loud.
He's still like, you know, don't take Barbara's horse or you'll never hear the end of it. You know, like it's just like.
And it's so sad at the end too, where he's retired. It's such a great depiction of retirement. She's like, "You better not," and he's like, "Well, you could do this." She's recommending things, and he's like, kind of barely listening. And she's like, I had a dream last night." She's like, "Well, you got time for him." Like she's being sweet and dealing with it. She's like, "I'm not retired."
And there's also, you know, there's so many movies where it's a lot in plays. I mean, we saw it in One Night in Miami. Someone's just like, "How's it going?" And the other person's like, "Let me tell you about this dream I had." But she literally says, "Tell me about the dream." You know what I mean? It doesn't feel forced when he tells her. You know what I mean? He's like, "You don't want to hear it." It actually feels organic. That's a hard thing to write. You know what I mean? Like it feels organic when he tells her. But then the dream is an interesting thing because it's like, you know, it ends on this comforting note. And then he says, "And then I woke up." So, right. But you still, for me personally, I don't know how you feel, but for me personally, I don't see it as pure nihilism, like pure, like I woke up and that's all just an illusion. I see it as just kind of, I still see it almost like it could kind of go either way. That's how I view it, you know?
Well, I guess, I mean, there's somewhat hopeful. I don't know. I mean, it's just such a fucking beautiful scene. It's hard to even like talk about the idea of recognizing that you're older than your father ever was.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating and sort of longing for that, that thing for
comfort,
you, the comfort of your
to know
past
everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, and his father's going to be there, and also he's facing death. The next big milestone in his life is death. Now that he's retired,
it's about the afterlife. It's about what happens when he dies. It's about, is it all just meaningless? You know what I mean?
Right.
And he had a dream where it's not all meaningless, but then he wakes up.
Right.
And then there's a question of like, you know, I think it's the best you can have in a movie where it's like, you know, there's reality, but there's also the dream. And maybe the dream is bullshit, but the fact that it's just there on its own gives you some hope. The fact that we still dream of something, you know what I mean? Maybe there's comfort in that, you know?
Right.
Because I don't see it as a pure like, and then I woke up, boom, life is meaningless. I don't see it completely in that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's how it was intended, but I don't see it completely like that. I see it as this kind of what any movie can really say at the end, which is a sense of not really knowing, you know?
Yeah, well, and it's just a continuation of his struggle. It just feels like a real moment that's not actually standing out from whatever conversation they might have 3 nights later or 3 years later.
Right.
It just feels very, that's the dream I had last night. And he just continues to be lost. And it's like we were talking about on the Jack Nicholson thing about the movies you didn't see. But back in the 70s, you could kind of end movies with these, nothing's really tied up here. I mean,
yeah.
And it's just kind of this guy who was lost and continues to be lost. And there's a sadness there. But there's also a happiness. He has a wife. He's with somebody. He's served.
And I mean, his father's in the dream. I mean, I guess maybe there's no comfort in the universe, but his need for comfort is there. You know what I mean? And that suggests we create our own comfort. You know what I mean? There's still a need for love and security, and that need gives you some kind of meaning, you know, even though it's also very much a loss at that end, you know? Yeah, I think it's a bittersweet ending in a movie that's pretty harsh. But there are also, I want to say there are, as dark as this movie is, there are heroic moments in this movie within the darkness. And I do think this is interesting. So the scene where Javier Bardem goes to Kelly McDonald to kill her at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he asks her to flip the coin. Now, in the book, she says no.
Right.
She actually then agrees to flip the coin. And they flip the coin, and she gets the wrong, it flips it so she's going to die. And he goes, "Do you understand now?" And she's like, "Yes, it's all meaningless." And it's kind of a pretentious moment in the book. In the movie, they cut out that part. So all you see her doing is actually refusing to flip the coin and going, "It's not the coin, it's you. You're making this decision. It's not luck." And she dies, but she dies in kind of a moment of courageousness where she refuses to play his sick game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think she's older in the movie. I think she's like 19 years old in the book.
Yeah. And
but yeah, she's the one that stands up to him the most of everyone in the movie.
And that's, you know, in the Cormac McCarthy world, everyone's kind of doomed, but the one thing you can have is like courage. And she stands up and she kind of breaks you almost see some sadness in him in that moment where he goes, she's like, "It's not you, it's the coin." He's like, "I came from just the same place the coin came." You know, he's almost wounded by her. And of course, directing wise, I mean, I can't, like, it's so amazing to have that moment and then cut to just him coming out of the house and looking at his shoes and knowing he killed her. One of the great, like, that's fucking directing.
That, and then also 2 kids ride by with little playing cards on their bicycles. So it goes.
Right.
There's this innocence also passing by that it's just happening in a small town where kids are playing.
Like, yeah, no, it's amazing. And there's this thing they talk about, like, you know, like, I don't know, the old thing Hitchcock talks about, like pure cinema, this idea of you take a shot of a guy and then you take a shot of a bowl of soup and the audience goes, "He's hungry." You know, you combine the thesis and the antithesis and you create a synthesis in your head. And the fact that you can show a shot of him and her, not show him kill her, not spell it out for the audience, just show a shot in the next moment of him looking under his shoe, and you have to piece it together in your head, is filmmaking at its highest form. It's creating the ideas for you through the imagery, through the visuals and the contrasting visuals.
Yeah, they're just the best. And it's strange because this movie is like, it sounds pretentious, but it's like, it's hard for me to even talk about because it's like, it's so great that it's hard to even talk about it without just being like, it's the best. Like I like me talking about this film is only going to take from the greatness of the film. And I'm not just saying that because we're 90 minutes into this podcast. It's just like, there's nothing, I'm not smart enough to articulate this better than just going and watching this movie. It's so goddamn interesting. I mean, every single shot is beautiful. Every piece of dialogue is amazing. And it's also just cool and fun in a way. You just love all 3 of these characters are so fucking like gripping and compelling.
And they're witty.
Can't take your eyes off them.
There's a witty folksiness to all of them, which is like, because the movie does bring up some serious stuff and it risks being pretentious. because it is so like philosophical. But then the movie has so much levity and wittiness within that kind of nihilistic philosophical thing that allows it to not be pretentious by having some charm to mix in with it. You know what I mean? And it keeps it from being pretentious, I think.
And what's interesting is sort of, we kind of touched on this a little bit with Silence of the Lambs too, but like all three of the characters are so likable. There's not a character that you really hate. Like Anton Chigurh, you fucking love him. He's great.
So I think he's, so we got to talk about it. I think he's the greatest villain of all time. And
oh, absolutely.
People talk about the Joker. I'm like, fuck you, Joker. Like, it's like the Joker, 4 actors have won like the Academy Award for Joker. It's fucking nonsense. And the Joker is like, for me, it's like the Joker is interesting, but it's like, why watch the Joker when you can watch Javier Bardem, which is just a much more disturbing version of that, you know? And it's like, to me, it's just such a superior version of that.
No, he's one of the great characters ever. By the way, I love the detail at the beginning when the first time we kind of see him and he says to the guy on the side of the road, would you hold still? And then the very next shot is Llewellyn hunting. And he says, hold still. I mean, that's such a great, it's talking about great direction.
The difference is Llewellyn misses a fucking prey.
Exactly.
So Llewellyn just ain't up for the task of predator that Javier Bardem is. I mean, that whole, first of all, Cormac McCarthy just thinks of so many disturbing things. And the idea of using a cow gun to kill, I think to kill cows, to kill people is like such a beautifully disturbing image of like slaughter. You know what I mean? It's so dehumanizing. And it's just like that suction and him coming at the police officer, the guy just thinking he's being pulled over, politely putting the thing to his head. It's fucking disturbing. It's just so fucking disturbing.
And what you were talking about earlier with the boots, and they do that earlier in the film when he has the guy with the chicken coop and he's like, can you take those out? And he's like, take them out. And it just cuts to him fucking spraying down the car and his feathers flying everywhere.
Dialectic materialism, combining those two images. It is all over that movie. And there's a certain point in that movie where you see him kill so many people and then the movie just stops even showing it, but you know it's happening. There's almost like he is so destructive that you don't even need to see it anymore. You just have to know that everyone who comes, because it starts kind of like when he goes into the office, he shoots the guy from Office Space. And then that other guy's there and he's like, did you see me? They're like, are you going to kill me? He's like, I don't know. Did you see me? Right. So you know that guy's dead, right? And then you got the chicken coop and you just see the shot of the chicken coop. It's like the movie doesn't even have to show you it anymore. And it's just such powerful filmmaking to just like have the death almost at this point just be an afterthought, you know?
Well, and then the building of the legend of Anton Chigurh, when he's like, well, maybe he's afraid of me. He should be the one that should be afraid of me. And Woody Harrelson just goes, he isn't. And then we watch Woody Harrelson, who seems like this badass, who's a hired killer Vietnam vet, turn to a fucking puddle.
That's scared.
So powerful.
That is
like a child.
That is such a powerful moment. Totally. Because it's like, I said this before, like, it's kind of like Joe Pesci in Casino getting beaten to death. You see these characters who seem like really put together, and he's just very witty and he's very wise, and he seems to be the one guy who knows shit. But then he's afraid of death and pissing in his pants just like everyone else. And it shows you the vulnerability we all have in that moment, because he realizes he's going to die. And you see his fucking, when someone's about to die, you see their fucking soul. And it's like, I don't even want to see it. It's just like you see them right. It's like watching someone come. You're just like, you're seeing right into their fucking soul. And it's, you see his fear and how he doesn't fully get it.
And the idea that, again, the direction, I'm like losing my breath because I'm so excited to talk about this movie, but like it goes from.
Oh shit.
What?
I gotta plug my fucking computer in. Hold on.
Oh, you scared me. God. I got such a great fucking point coming here.
I know, but my phone's about to die.
Your phone? Are you shooting this on your phone?
No.
Oh my God, this is so unprofessional. Oh, Jesus Christ. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to talk more about how great this film was. And I'm literally, oh no, he just fucking disappeared. His computer died. Son of a bitch. And he was doing the recording. Oh, this is awful. Well, maybe it's a dream come true for everybody, actually. But what a numbskull this guy is, huh? Folks, I'm Joe List, and you can check out Raanan. He's a hilarious comedian, much better at comedy than he is at podcasting, at Raanan Comedy on Twitter and Instagram. And once he gets this computer plugged in, I expect a text message any moment. I guess I should just pause the recording. I think you can do that. I'm going to pause the recording, and I'll be back with dumb Jew-face killer Raanan Hirschberg, who I swear to God, he's a great comedian. And we're going to talk more about No Country. I've probably lost the thought that I was going to say, but all right, we'll be right back. All right, we're back. Raanan is back, but I wanted to talk about this one scene. I don't even want to trash you for having your computer die, you numbskull. I did it while you were gone. But so again, we talked about the direction and how great the Coen brothers are. So that scene, first of all, you see Woody Harrelson is this badass and he's willing to murder. He's a hired killer. We watch him as soon as he hears Anton behind him. He knows he's fucked. Now that the things we don't see, they had to walk into this hotel room together while he's shitting his pants. Then you see the phone starts ringing, and then obviously he shoots Woody Harrelson. Then he just lifts his boots to put him up on the bed so they don't get blood on him. And which amazing is setting up killing Carla later. So we're setting that up, but also it shows he just casually has his feet up, even though he just shot this guy that he knows relatively intimately, it feels like, in the face. And then what's the phone call? It's fucking Lewin calling because he finally realizes, I can't handle this guy. Let me give in. I'll call Woody Harrelson. And immediately Anton answers. And now fucking Lewin realizes, oh, I'm fucked. Because we know he's calling because he's like, shit, I can't handle this guy. And the guy he thought was going to help him has already been killed by that guy. You just can't make a movie better. You could make a movie as good as this movie, but not a better movie.
And there's so many of these moments where he invests so little in killing people. It's such an afterthought for him that, he also shoots, I believe, the Mexican in the bathtub without even looking. He does a lot of like killing without even like really thinking about it, But also what's so great about that scene to me is that this whole time Woody Harrelson's like, you can't negotiate with him. You can't negotiate with him. And then Woody Harrelson tries to negotiate with him. Well, it's like, no matter, it's kind of like the thing about death. You think you have it, but you're still just like everyone else in that moment. You're like, please help me. You have that delusion, and that's to me the other interesting thing I thought like about what Javier Bardem represents, because to me it's like he wants people to see him as death. He wants to go up there and have people look at him like he's more than just a human being, like he's death. And that does happen. Like, for instance, not on Zoom, but if I was with you and I took a gun out on you, you know what I mean? You would no longer see me as just Raanan. You would see me as death. So in a way, it's like you become a symbol when you jeopardize someone's life. So he, in the movie, is consciously, to me, becoming this symbol of death all the time. And it makes himself feel powerful. But by the end, when he gets hit in the car accident, you realize he's not really a symbol. He is a flesh and blood human being. He's almost just tricked people into thinking he's more than that, Right. And that's how that's how I see him. He is like consciously, when he flips the coin, when he makes the guy flip the coin in one of the great scenes of all time. Absolutely. I mean, just like you've been putting it down. I put nothing down on the line. You've been putting it down your whole life. You just didn't know it. I mean, that's like, you don't get, and that's Cormac McCarthy, but you don't get fucking better lines than that. Even though it seems like Cormac McCarthy is such a like old school reader intellectual, it seems like he never realized that he's taking a thing from Two-Face and Batman, the whole flipping the coin thing. That is kind of funny that he just never realized. Like, it's like that's from Batman, but it seems like he's just not a comic book guy, so he doesn't realize that. But like, it's funny. That's like the one flaw in the movie, is that he doesn't realize that's Two-Face's whole thing. But
yeah, but also but I mean, I know you're kind of like joking, but it's also like it makes Two-Face not even
it's just so much better than Two-Face.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like you can't. Two-Face exists in whatever fucking world. In fact, it exists in the world that Seven existed in fucking Gotham City, some fake, dark, rainy bullshit city.
But it is funny that just like it's very clear he doesn't know what Two-Face is. You know what I mean? And no one who read the book first was like, had seen that. But that being said, yes, of course, it's so much better than Two-Face. And that scene with that guy is just so amazing. But like, yeah, that guy, seeing him in that moment has would be funny if he didn't know anything. Just started giving him riddles like the Riddler.
Right. I'm just thinking about it. Made me think of like, it's a funny scene. The idea he's pitching it. It reminds me of like Austin Powers, where he's like $1 million, and they're like, that's actually not the.
His next book is like, I got a great villain. He acts like a penguin. No one's ever done it.
No, it's funny.
But so yeah, he's always becoming a symbol of death, and and he's becoming more than a human because you can only become more than a human through someone else's perspective. You yourself know you're not more than a human, but you can become that through other people's perspective. And the easiest way to become that is having them know that you're going to kill them. And you've become more than a human from their perception. And when Kelly McDonald refuses to do the Coen thing, she's the first person to really like refuse to see him as that symbol of death. You're killing me not because it's Coen, but because you're a sociopath, and you need to accept that.
Exactly. And what's the thing that happens to him? The very next thing that happens to him,
hit in a fucking car.
He gets fucking nailed by a car in his butt. Look at that fucking bone.
She basically, even though she dies, on some cosmic level, she brought him down to human dimensions.
Exactly. And then that kid just saying, look at that fucking bone is just hilarious and beautiful. And it's amazing. I mean,
yeah.
It's just as good as a fucking movie can get. It's as good as it gets with Jack Nicholson and Greg Kinnear.
I feel like we really analyzed the shit out of this movie. Like,
I think we analyzed all of them. I think this is like our best episode. This episode is longer than The Big Lebowski. By the way.
Yeah, well, we have a lot to talk about. Yeah, and the people don't like No Country. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's like, what do you want from a movie? Yes, this is in many ways an artsy movie, but it's also a fucking entertaining as shit action film. So it's like, and people are annoyed because it doesn't do the things they expect in movies. You don't see Josh Brolin get killed. You know what I mean? And it ends on this abrupt moment. But this is a movie that is so deep and philosophical, but also really fucking entertaining.
Just fun. It's fun and entertaining. And this was in that little window where the Academy got it right. They that won the Oscar. Usually they don't give it to very ultra violent movies 2 years in a row. The Departed had won the year before, which is not nearly as great a movie, but they got it. They figured it out. That was a hilarious moment. That should be an animated GIF or whatever. Just you go.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of memes. Well, maybe I shouldn't give people ideas, but yeah, I mean, they got it. I think in some ways they were like giving them a Oscar because they didn't give them to it before.
Hey, your sound just changed. All of a sudden, your sound stinks.
All right, it's okay.
It's like the mic all of a sudden sucks.
What? It's bad.
Your mic sounds like shit out of nowhere all of a sudden.
Hello?
Yeah, it sounds awful. I think it stopped working or something.
Hello? What about now?
Yeah, that's better.
Is that good now?
Yeah.
You seem unsure.
Yeah,
bad?
It feels hot and weird now. It just changed a little bit, but now it's better than it was a second ago.
It's bad. This is the only time you've criticized my mic, and it's been so awful before, so I can only imagine how awful it is right now. If you're bringing it
sounds
up.
good. It's good now.
Sounds good? Okay. I
don't know what happened.
Should I get that thing that you put on your mic?
Yes, definitely. You more than anybody.
What does that do, that black thing? Does it make it less
it keeps it from
chewy
popping.
and loud?
It gives you a little less.
Oh.
Yeah, watch. What? I don't know. Whoa.
I have it next week. I'm like, hello, Joe.
Now I can't get the thing back on. Oh, it was all for a bit. And I can't get it back on. All right.
But
there we go. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
I think for God's sakes.
I think they're just giving them like an apology Oscar. It just so happened that the Coen Brothers also had made another fucking masterpiece.
I don't think it was an apology Oscar. I think it was they just finally went fuck everything else. Let's just vote for the best movie of the year.
Was that the last time they got it right?
Hard to say. I remember. I know the 90s and 2000s Oscars so well, but
oh no, because I think Roma won Best Picture, right?
I don't think so. Maybe it did.
I think it did, and that is. Oh no, it won Best Director, and then Green Book won Best Picture.
Exactly.
So they got it wrong. Yeah, No Country is like the one time they really fucking. I think that might be the last like really fucking getting it correct. Except they still got it wrong in the sense that Tommy Lee Jones should have been Best Actor and won. I don't know who won that year, but it should have been him.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
But yeah,
sorry, Daniel Day-Lewis won for There Will Be Blood.
I think Daniel Day-Lewis should have won for Gangs of New York.
All right, we're off the rails here. We're at the 2 hour mark, and we're talking about Gangs of New York, for Christ's sakes. But It's an amazing movie, and it's just a fucking masterpiece. It's amazing. It's so fun. It's so entertaining. There's laughs. There's the greatest murderer of all time. The ending is incredible. Tommy Lee Jones is one of the most relatable characters. Think about it, he's like a 70-year-old sheriff in West Texas in the 80s, and I relate to him.
Well, I mean, because he is like, he's afraid. And like, you feel the vulnerability of that fear when he goes in at the end and Javier Bardem's in the room. And he knows the guy's in the room and he just like leaves. Like you feel the fear of him. He is afraid. And that's something you don't always see in movies. You see a lot of characters who are kind of like very heroic and fearless. In this movie, you're seeing a protagonist be like afraid and feeling like he can't do much and quitting. And it's just like, it's negative, but I've also never seen it really. You know what I mean? So it's such a unique thing.
I also relate to him now with comedy in so many ways. I see parallels where it's like, I don't get it. I see comics just tweeting really like woke political things with no joke and comedians attacking other comedians. I feel like him. I'm like, I don't even understand it anymore.
I don't understand this world anymore. Yeah.
I genuinely feel that way. And that's when I relate to him. And you feel defeated. You want to quit. And then you go talk to an older comic who's kind of like, it's always been like this. It's just idiots. But I see versions of comedy that I'm like,
which is true. It is
the
always
opposite of what I want to be and do.
It has always been like, there's always the young pieces of shit who are hot, who suck. And this new kind of innovation that feels like it won't last. And we feel like we're getting older.
I'm not just talking about that though. I'm talking about comics that go to Twitter to shit on other comics, which I just find unforgivable and unacceptable.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, like telling jokes is just like a type of comic. At this point,
right,
like, that's how bad it's gotten. Like that's like a direction you can go. And what kind of comedian are you? I'm the one who like tells jokes to get the audience to laugh. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting niche.
Yeah.
But
I've had people say like, you have so many jokes in your special. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? That's what I thought we were doing. What are you talking about?
He pulled an Amadeus. Too many jokes.
But anyways, we gotta wrap this up.
I know. Jesus Christ. Well, fuck it. We'll give. I mean, I feel like we're off for 3 weeks, and people are messaging. I mean, I don't want to have like an inflated sense, but people are messaging like, "Thank God I was about to kill myself. Thank God this came on." Which, if you're about to kill yourself, I mean, maybe you're already in a pretty bad place. But I'm kidding. No one said that.
Okay, thank God. All right, so I guess we'll rank.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's
I've made it obvious, I think.
Obviously yours is No Country, and then Fargo, and then Big Lebowski.
Absolutely. Oh, we talked Inside Llewyn Davis a little bit, which
I mean, mine is you're gonna think mine's Big Lebowski, Fargo, and then No Country. But I love them all like so very equally.
Yes, I love all of them. I've watched all of them 50 times. But Big Lebowski is the one I've watched the least, I have to say.
Big Lebowski. I mean, I try to write scripts, and I care a lot about dialogue. I think me personally, I've just learned the most from Big Lebowski about character development and like dialogue. But I mean, I love all three of them. But yeah, I think it would go. I mean, it's so hard to choose. But yeah, I think Big Lebowski is, and then Fargo, and then No Country. Yeah.
Interesting. So you're like
we have the opposite reverse.
Complete reverse. Yeah, complete reverse of each other.
But I mean, they're like. I was gonna say cunt hair. You can't say that.
Yeah,
vagina hair, pubic hair. Away.
It's funny because I'm like, I've watched Big Lebowski the least, and I've probably seen it 40 times, like legitimately. Maybe I've actually seen Lebowski more because it's got 8 years ahead of No Country. So, anyways, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let's do some plugs. Night of the Mullets. Get it on online. Boaz. Where are you?
I don't even know what the fuck you're saying.
Having a stroke like Keith Robinson.
Yeah, tone stroke. I bet
this is my cousin.
Stroke comments in there. Where am I going to be? Paramount Theater, Austin, Texas, home of Linklater. We still got to do Linklater. Every time I say Austin, I think of Linklater.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I'd love to.
May 15th, Paramount Theater, and I'm coming to Des Moines and Kansas City in June. And check out the special. I Hate Myself. You probably are. If you're watching this, you've seen the special. So subscribe. Just subscribe. That's the best thing to do. And we're a podcast now.
Yeah, we're a podcast. Yeah, and that's the other thing we got to bring up. We're coming out now. We finally are catching up. We have them all online available, and we're going to now be coming out consistently, right? Every Monday.
Yes, we're going to do our best.
We're gonna do our best. We might fuck up some. We're very busy. But like we're gonna try to have it come out every Monday. It might just be 2 movies, not 3. Sometimes it'll be 3, but sometimes it might be 2. I mean, it's hard to watch that many fucking movies in a week, but we want to have this shit be consistent. So we're gonna try to have it come out every Monday. Also, you can see me this weekend in Key West at Comedy Key West. Is that what it's called? I'm gonna try to go snorkeling while I'm there. Did you go snorkeling?
I did, yes. I'm a little nervous about it. Did you freeze? That's a hilarious place to freeze. Or maybe I froze.
Did I freeze? On snorkeling, I was 8 in Key West.
Oh fuck!
And I am I frozen?
Or I'm frozen. I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna hit stop. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose this. I'm gonna end it.